Hey now, welcome back to Sales Team Ready podcast, where there are no limits and everything is possible, right? There's nothing but opportunity before you and the mountaintop to be seized. So we are here to be your guide in your journey on that. And we're doing everything in our power to help you see what is possible for you when you overcome the limits and the blocks in the way, and just get you the systems, process, strategies, and insights, whatever can come from my brain and our experiences or any of the experts that we bring to you. It's all about helping you scale, helping you get exponential growth, helping you see what is possible, things that may not have been previously visible to you. And we want to constantly encourage you to step outside the comfort zone and go get it, make it happen. All right. Before we dive in, make sure you go to the jimp360.com, my personal website, where you can catch me at any place that is convenient for you. Catch all my social medias, videos there, learn more about us. You find out how to work with us, find out how to work for us, and everything in between, and all of the events that we have coming up, because we always have good ones coming and we have some really big ones coming up now. So make sure you check them out there. jimp360.com. When you do, hit that contact button, save me into your phone, and shoot me a text message and let me know where you're at, where you're coming from, what you're hearing, what you like, what you don't like, and anything you need. If you want some help specifically, or want us to do an episode about a specific topic, let us know. That's the fastest way to make it happen, and we can help you from there. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to bring somebody to you today who's an expert around storytelling, someone that I've gotten to know recently and really, really like his approach. And love what he's doing. And I cannot agree more. Literally every single thing that he talks about, I'm in lockstep with, because you have to be able to tell your story. You have to be able to tell your client's story. You have to be able to tell the story of the people that you've helped, right? Because it's not about selling people stuff. It's about connecting with people and delivering an experience that will help them see how much you know, how much you care, and what we can do about it. So I, as one of the country's go-to experts in video marketing and storytelling, over 15 years of experience in video marketing. Okay, that's very important. Also a best-selling author of 3 marketing books. He's recorded 250 episodes of The Garlic Marketing Show, created over 10 marketing courses, and produced more than 2,000 videos for his clients. Okay, that just means simply that he's got some proficiencies. He's solved problems that you haven't even experienced yet, and he's a world-class expert. And I want you to pay attention. And this is when you're going to want to rewind, think through. This is a very simple concept. There's not a lot of rocket science in this, but there is incredible amounts of gold that can be gained from it if you actually do what we're talking about here. So welcome, Ian Garlic, to the podcast. All right, so here we are, Ian, and you just got the big formal introduction, but why don't you just take a minute and tell the Sales Team Ready audience here, how'd you came here? What's going on? How did this all come to be for you?
Well, I always think back to the airplane quote, like, where do we get started? It's like, first, the earth cooled, the dinosaurs came, then the Arabs came, bought oil. But I've been around sales my entire life. I've been in sales and marketing in some way, shape, or form. For most of my life, I was a bartender for a while, which is sales. And eventually, when I was in New York, I was in commercial real estate sales, like investment grade. And right when the crash happened, I was like, I need to do something else. I loved marketing. I was doing a lot with LinkedIn myself. And this was 2005. So LinkedIn was really easy, because if you got a message on LinkedIn, people were like, what is this? And everyone would respond. Yeah, we started the agency really to get people's stories out there. Video marketing, when YouTube was purchased by Google, I was like, this is it. And I'd already been using customer story videos in my sales process. And I'm like, this is it. And we're making a lot of other types of videos for professionals. But from a sales and marketing standpoint, I knew video was going to be powerful, and I knew storytelling was powerful, and customer stories, and you put it all together, and we start the agency, and we have 3 businesses now, and Video Case Story is really where everyone starts with us.
Got it. And yeah, I totally remember the days when it was a novel thing to get a message on LinkedIn or any platform for that matter these days. But yeah, so that's good stuff, man. Stories. I can't remember who gets the original credit for that statement, but it's not about what you say to people; it's about how you make them feel when you say it, right?
Yep.
It's that what you leave them with is what they're going to keep.
Yep, Maya Angelou.
Yes,
it's a great quote from her.
Yeah, very applicable here. So, so when it comes to stories, I mean, I think everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a billion stories, but
Billion stories.
it's, I was actually just watching a training call with Roland Frazier the other day, and the guy's been very accomplished and done many things in the business world in all areas and ventures. And he had to sit down with his wife and kids for them to pull out of him the stories, because he didn't think he had any stories.
Mhm.
And I'm like, dude, you got stories just walking
Yeah.
around the corner, right? But sometimes we just can't see them.
Nope.
Right? So how do people get past that?
Well, I mean, for us, it's having someone, like you said, having someone on the outside interviewing you in a conversation. I think one of the people think that there's like this magic, and there's formulas we use, but you can't send someone question and tell stories. We're human beings. We need to talk to someone and know what we want the stories to do, because we all have stories, but we need to know what we want stories to do, talk through them, and then collect them in one place. We created something called the tackle box for that reason, because I talked to so many companies, and they'd say the same thing. Oh, we don't have a story. And then I'd interview them, like, yeah, you have some stories. And they're like, oh yeah, we have a story over here that I don't know where it is. I'm like, so we start to collect, create a system for planning them out, where you're going to use them, so we know them what stories to collect and look for. And then once we shoot them, we collect them and put them in one place. But they also can be written stories or ideas for stories in there, but you have to have that system. I actually started to develop this when I was in sales, because one of the best salespeople I knew just collected stories. The best salesperson I knew collected stories. And that's all he did. He wasn't looking for closing tricks.
Right.
He wasn't looking for, the latest prospecting trick. He just wants stories. And when you start to have them, and I'd go into every sales meeting with a bunch of stories lined up, but you have to be actively collecting them, talking to people about them.
Yeah, I love that. I used to, back before all the complicated, sophisticated machinery work and the computers now, when we were just getting started with them, the first time I figured out what a folder was on the desktop, I was like, this would be a great place to keep stories, or story ideas is what I had. And so every time something would come up, whether it was with a customer or whether out walking my dog, and I was like, oh my God, that was amazing. How did that happen? And then I just, boom, it's a story, and I throw it into the folder, because you never know when it's going to be relevant.
Exactly.
Right. It doesn't necessarily work for every deal, and it won't work right now, but 3 months from now, you may come across somebody like, this is perfect. I was walking my dog this one time, right? And it just totally relates.
Exactly. And you have them ready, and you get used to having them ready. And so when it happens, you're like, oh, I got the perfect story for this. And I mean, that's the key. It's simple, just not easy.
So what kind of stories should people be collecting? And I mean, obviously all kinds of story, but is there like a 3-minute, a 30-minute, a 30-second, like what kind of a template do you have people work on?
That's an amazing question, because this is one of the most, besides what questions should I ask in a video case story, that's probably the number 2 most used question. And it matters, right? It's like anything, it depends on life. We do have a template for the story. It's a 3-part to it. It's connection, conflict, conclusion, right? So you should know that. But we also talk about cold, warm, and hot, because the story you tell to someone who doesn't know that they have a problem is different than the story that someone knows they have a problem, to a different story that someone's about to hire you. And it's a different version of that story too. But if you have an amazingly intricate and heartwarming story, it can be 4, 5, 6, 10 minutes long. We make 30-minute stories.
Right.
But you can tell a story in 30 seconds too, and have those in micro content pieces floating around, retargeting, etc., and have that long form story. So it does depend. And we make all those sizes. So what we usually do is we interview, after we have a strategy and know what stories we want to get out, we'll interview someone for anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. And you get multiple stories inside there. And like, well, where are we going to use this? And how are we going to use this? And that will depend on the length and the template for it.
Yeah. I'm a pretty creative. I mean, I'm definitely I'm visionary, but far more than detail. Okay. I'm 99.9% visionary. So stories come easy to me. and I can make anything relevant. Like I said, talking a story about walking my dog or a story about when I was at a Yankees game, whatever it is, I can find a way to make it relevant. Where do you get people to begin in terms of, making it relevant for what they're trying to sell?
I made a course on this, and we call it the fish in the barrel, right? Because we all have clients where everyone wants to go out and kill that, catch that big whale. I wouldn't say kill the whale, but get the big whale. And we go do all these crazy techniques and lead generation, but we have clients swimming around, our potential clients swimming around us, and that's where I tell people to start. Because you should have stories on your website all throughout your website. You should have stories that show up for when someone Googles your name. If you are introduced to anyone, what's the first thing you do? You Google their name. And you should have stories showing up for that. You should have stories that are on your LinkedIn homepage. Like when someone looks at your LinkedIn, you should have stories right there, because should be a sales page. You should have stories that you send out right away to people. So
Should those be like mission and purpose type stories so people know what you're about, or where would you start?
I start with customer stories, right? Because here's the number one thing that when someone learns about you, they're like, does Jim understand my problem, right? If it's sales, does he understand my problem? Has he helped someone like me with that problem? And did they get an outcome like I wanted? Was that transformation? And that story, your customer stories can answer that. I mean, in the end, like everyone's like, well, I sell through referrals. Referrals are just stories. It's someone referring to you. They know that person's story. And they're like, oh yeah, Jim helped me with sales, but I know that person's business. I know that person's story. So I start with that. But then even as you talk about your About Us, which is the second most used page on your website, you should be weaving in customer stories. I think one of my favorite ones that we've done is we did this for Tarkenton Financial, Fran Tarkenton. And if you go to their homepage, you can see the stories of their people, of their clients, of their advisors woven into their About Us. And then you get into About Us, and then the story of what it's like to work with you, your process story, because you want to future pace it. So those are the stories, and I pretty much do them in that order.
Would you recommend for anybody listening everybody here that's listening, this is typically in the scale game. Everybody's trying to exponentially grow their companies, reach the mountaintop, et cetera. So they've got some level of success. They've helped people, they've delivered results. Would you recommend, like as an exercise, just start documenting all the people you've helped and then figure out how to turn them into stories?
I mean, that's exactly how we start. When we start with a client, we go through what I called about the tackle box, and we're listening out your 10, 15, 20 best clients. And we go through each of their stories with you. And this is an amazing process. I've done this with marketers, with salespeople that think they got their stories down, and you'll always uncover things, and you start realizing that and uncover opportunities. But yeah, 100% start documenting them, start collecting them right now. And, we've got a lot of these things, just so you know, I'll put it in there, videocasestory.com/STR. We'll have a lot of these tools available for you, and a course on the fish in the barrel. So what I call the tackle box, because people are like, well, why all these fishing analogies? Well, I have to write off my boat. So you want to keep all your tackle in one place if you go fishing. And that's why you start with it. But like I said, you start with what do you have already? And you start going through it and have your team go through it. And then also this becomes a place for then your team to go to, new salespeople, learn all the stories, because the salespeople don't need to have their own stories. You should be using the other people's stories when you get out there, but that's the best way to sell all day long.
Sales Team Ready is sponsored by Gain the Edge. If you're wondering how you'll hit your sales goals or hit your numbers, if you've experienced sluggish sales so far to this point, or you're just tired of hitting the same problems and challenges, let us talk. Let us see where we can get you unstuck, right? Because we can create the systems, the processes, the strategies, and the sales teams that can help you move past where you're going and reach that mountaintop. Reach out, join us. Hey, the link is in the show notes, right? And talk to one of our GTE success advisors, see what we can do to get you up to that mountaintop. Yeah, that's one of the things we do when we're building playbooks. We build sales playbooks when we come in to sell for companies or getting their systems ready for their sales team. And that's one of the pieces that we touch on, but I don't think we go near deep enough, because we're just usually looking for like, what's your top couple of case studies that we can share? And we should be It feels like we should, like, let's make 10 be the goal right away. Right. Just get,
Yeah.
you know,
And when you talk about it, and that's one thing we go through, is you come up with all the new angles too, and you get deeper, and you're like, have you thought about selling this part of your business, like that you do this? They're like, oh, I didn't even realize that was a differentiator. We sit down and try and figure out our value proposition, but our customers have our value proposition. We just have to talk about them and talk to them.
Yeah. God, I like that. What's the biggest challenge for people? Because this wouldn't be a niche for you. You wouldn't be doing this if everybody knew how to do it on their own.
I think, the number one challenge is people ask for and get testimonials, and they check the box. And I tell people, I have a book coming out called Testimonials Stink, because a testimonial is about Jim. If you ask me for a testimonial, what would I do? I'd talk about Jim.
Right.
No one cares. No offense, Jim. You're awesome. But no one cares about Jim until they know everything that Jim can do for them.
Right.
Same thing. Is if you ask for testimonials, you're gonna get people talking about your company. If you don't take the time to dig and find their stories and make this a priority, you're gonna get that and you'll be like, oh, I have a bunch of these testimonials. And if you arm your salespeople with testimonials, it just looks like you're bragging. So I think that's the number one thing, is that mindset of stories are the most important part of your business. You should be constantly collecting them, spend time, step back, strategize on them, and really value them for what they are, not check the box.
So if somebody's putting together a sequence, like I can hear people scratching out notes right now, figuring, okay, I'm going to find some case study. And then, I want to put something short. I can't put a 30-minute case study out there yet because people won't listen to it. What do you recommend? Should they do like a 30-second version first? And a 3-minute version?
On the homepage, on the website, depends on the website, 2 to 5 minutes. If it's an amazing story, it can be 7 minutes long. And then you take little clips of it and sub 60-second versions that you use throughout your social media, leading back to that longer version. You want to learn more about this. You want to learn more about this. But a 30-minute version can be good for cold traffic. Because here's the thing, is if you're going to YouTube, which we're big into YouTube SEO and getting this stuff ranking, and you want to get ranking for certain terms, you can have a 30-minute one that, if it's really, really well done, and it like really details how things are done, and it's instructional and emotional and vibrant. But yeah, on your website, usually sub 3 minutes, around there. And then it just varies where they are in the customer journey. We had one that on a website that was on the About Us page that was 10 minutes long, and we had an 80% view time on it. And because it was so powerful. But once again, it depends on the power. But yeah, 2 to 3 minutes is a good place to start.
Yeah. And so right now I can already hear people going, oh my God, I got to get in a studio, and I gotta find somebody, and then I got to have a budget for it. And what are you saying to them?
If you don't have the money, you should have the time. If you don't have the time, you should have the money. If you don't have either, there's something wrong with your business. Yeah. And I say, yes, you should dedicate some time. There's nothing more important than your customer stories. People spend how much money on logos, which makes me nauseous. And they're like, I want my logo to say this. The only thing the logo says is what's reflected by the stories, right? When someone sees a Disney logo, there's a story in their head of why it's so powerful, of like their first trip to Disney, or taking the kids, or the parents taking them, or seeing a Disney movie. They have a story in their head. So it's a fundamental, right? I think about like Kobe Bryant, free throws, right? The guy could shoot some free throws. What did he do after every championship game he won? He went out and shot more free throws. All right. And that's what makes you a champion. This is a fundamental, like you talk about follow-up. Follow-up is an absolute fundamental. And it should be dedicated time every day. So yes, if you don't have the money, start doing it, start collecting it, and start learning how to ask for stories. If you have the money, hire someone who understands storytelling to help you with your stories.
Yeah. Amen. So get that done, guys. It's just something you have to get done. And you just got to start with version 1.0. And then you can always you do version 2.0 and then version 10.0, but you got to start with something.
Got to start with something. It's the key differentiator. And it's a great follow-up tool too, right? You can use it every single place in your business. And I have clients that have used their video case stories that we've created them for 7, 8, 9 years. Talk about return on investment.
Yeah.
But like you said, version done is better than version none.
Absolutely. And we use them wherever we can. Quite honestly, I mean, I know we probably forget to use them in many places, but you can use it to generate interest and get people to want to book an appointment with you. You can use stories after they've booked an appointment with you, so that there's now a story to tell them what to expect and why they should show up and what's going to happen when they do. And that's a story in and of itself. And then after you've spoken to them and made an offer and they need to think about it or process or whatever they're going to do, then it could be a follow-up with another story. Hey, while you're thinking about it, here's something that, here's somebody who was in that same situation and here's what they did to, it's just, it feels like it's just, I mean, it's just such a no-brainer. Like you should just be dropping them everywhere.
Yep.
And what about the same stories? I mean, like let's say somebody had 10 stories, but they're talking to 10 people a week. And after a while, you're just sharing the same stories over and over. Is that a bad thing?
I don't think so. I mean, think about, like, I love Tony Robbins. I've heard his story about him, his stories like 20, 30 times. Zig Ziglar, same thing, 20, 30 times. You've heard the stories, but a story, it can be told in different ways, right? You have different hooks. So it might attract attention. Every time you listen to a story, you might take something different from it. But
Sure.
Here's another powerful piece of, especially video stories, is the more we see someone, right? The more we see and hear their voice and one of your customers and you're sharing it, the more we think they're our friend. It's almost impossible to not feel like the person, because it's called the mere exposure effect. And in our brain, there's a whole bunch of science around it. But basically, the more you show these people to them, the more they think they're a friend, the more they trust them and trust to work with you. So reuse the stories, reuse them, reuse them.
Yeah, for sure. What would be like the one thing when people are thinking about this and hearing this, if forget everything else that we talked about, what's the one thing that they must remember about stories?
Is you have to install collecting them, crafting them, and delivering them into your business. It needs to be a habit. Whether you have someone, whether you do it yourself, because it's one of those fundamentals that if you don't do it, you're not going to notice not doing it. But if you do it, it's going to set you apart forever. And you just have to install that time. And 2, 3, I mean, I can't think of many things that are more important in your business. Just have the time to do it and make it a habit of collecting them and crafting them and delivering them. And you'll get better and better and better at it.
So what do you do once you have them? So stories, I mean, that's the glue, but now somebody's got their stories, and then how do you help them beyond that?
So, like I said, the fish in the barrel is that strategy. Make sure they're in these essential 12, 13 places throughout your website, in emails, in long-term nurture, and follow-up on your LinkedIn page, your YouTube page. Then one thing is what's super powerful is you can optimize stories on YouTube to show up for search terms and show up for your name, right? If someone's searching up, Jim Padilla and looks up, and then there's just boom, story, like, oh, this guy's really helped people. And you can show that. So, but also if they're really powerful, they can show up for other people, for other terms, like best sales training. You have a bunch of people talking about the sales training, how it transformed. Those YouTube videos not only show up in YouTube, being the number 2 most used search engine, show up in YouTube, but then also can show up in Google. And so, and then like the sub 60-second ones, the YouTube shorts, like the one you were just on our podcast, we launched it within like a few minutes of launch. It had 1,000 views. So distributing them everywhere, and then whatever marketing you have, whatever sales you have, look at that and go, let's start with that story. How can I use this in this campaign? We help with that. And then we work with partners. We do, because I'm like, we can't do everything with these. We use them in trade shows, books. You can make a book out of your stories. Sales follow-up is probably one of the best things, and sales prospecting. I try and get everyone to do that. You call someone up, it's like, hey, these are my clients had these problems. We solved them. Can I send you over a story of someone who had this exact problem, how we solved it, and how they're getting this result? Right. It's really hard for the right person not to say no to that, or not say yes to that.
Are you, obviously video is top, right? I mean, video is number 1, but do you do it in written form too? Or, how do you recommend every story is told both written and in video?
I suggest, yeah, distribute it on your social media. That's what's great. It's like, it's really social when it's a story. If it's someone just saying how great you are, it's boring. But if it's a heartwarming, life-changing story, which I found them in every business, they're like, well, I don't know, like my business isn't life-changing. I'm like, I've done stuff that you would never think is life-changing. That's like highly technical and it's transformed people's business and life. So yes, written social posts, blog posts on your websites, emails linking to the videos, those emails, like great long-term nurture, great follow-up. Yes, but definitely written, video, audio, use them on podcasts. Just be a storyteller.
It's funny because most people, I don't think people really believe that they have these great stories. We have a client that we're working with right now. They're a printing company, and we've worked with a handful of printing companies in the last few years, and they all just see themselves as a commodity. Like we produce print, everybody competes on price, and that's how we roll. And we've come in and we're showing them, you have so much more. Your business is a living, breathing being. And it's got a story, it's got goals, it's got people, it's got, it's a 50-year-old company on top of that. Right. So rich with stories. And what now it's like all of a sudden, we were just noticing the other day, we're doing weekly meetings with them. All of a sudden the whole team's showing up and everybody's contributing. And they're like, oh, we did this. And we were touring the production room the other day. It's like, there's a story about that. And so now they're becoming the story.
Yes. I love that. I love it because that's the other part. It inspires your team. Right. If you just talk about your output, right, and the function of it, it's like, oh yeah, paper printing, great. But in there, I'm sure there's like, I'm just thinking probably all the people that they didn't realize that they helped. Like they made this last minute invitation, or they made this thing that transformed a nonprofit, or, and it inspires the team. And one of my favorite things is, I don't know about you, Jim, but I have bad days and I'm like, oh, and like you have clients that are frustrated, things go wrong, and you think,
got a lot of those stories.
But on those bad days, I love to watch the stories of someone I helped. Like a story, not someone saying how great I am, but it's like, oh yeah, Ian helped me to build, because of that, we were able to build this house and buy this office and go on vacation with my family. I just had a story today of someone's like, I was able to take my first day off thanks to your advice, and everything went fine. I'm like, that to me is priceless.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's really good. We're getting to the end of this here and wrap this up. Give me a couple of things that, like, what's something needs to do right now. They're going to start putting stories together. What can they do? And then what can they come to you with?
The first thing is, like, look at what your goals are. What do you want the stories to do? I get crystal clear on that, because that will help you because stories can do so much. Your customer stories can do so much for your business, but you need to know where to start. I have a list of like 50, 60 different ways we've used customer stories, but you got to think about, what do I want this to do and why? Because then when you come and you start listening to those, you look at the people that you worked with and go, oh, we want more of that person, right? The story can be like a cloning device, because that story attracts someone else. So think about those goals. What are your marketing initiatives, right? Are you going to be doing PPC or something like that? What are your sales initiatives? Do you need to train? Do you need better follow-up? Prioritize that stuff. And once you do that, you can come to us and we sit down and we start talking about your stories. We do a strategy session around the stories and start to interview your client. We craft questions specifically for your clients and customers. And then all you have to do is introduce us, and we take it from there, do all the scheduling and all this stuff, and make all the different forms of videos based on that, and give you advice and strategy on where to use these. But get crystal clear on your goals. I can't tell you, I'm sure you have the same thing. Like, people come to us and they're like, well, I want more marketing. I'm like, well, what do you want it to do?
Right.
I don't know. I'm like, well, we have to figure that out.
Yeah. The question that we always ask is, what role do you want this event to play in your annual plan? What role do you want this story to play in your sales strategy? What role do you want this story to play in your business plans? Like, just, that's the question we always ask, no matter what strategy they're coming to us for. What role does this play in your business? Because most of the time they just think of it as an isolated thing.
Yes. No, I love that. That's a great question. I'm writing that one down. I'm using that.
Yeah. And then, you've given this awesome gift of the videocasestory.com/STR for Sales Team Ready, guys. Keep up. And so what's in that? What are they going to get in that?
So we'll have access to that tackle box document I told you about, and the fish in the barrel planner. This is the we're changing it. So it's always 10 to 13 places that everyone should be using video case stories, customer stories, and how to plan them out. Because like you were asking, like, well, what, how long should it be? We tell exactly where to use it, how to use it, length, and the type of story, whether it's cold, warm, and hot. So we do those 13 places. It's a 13 video series that just goes in depth and planning that out. Because once you plan that out, now you go start to collect the stories, what stories you're looking for, what content you're looking for. And that the tackle box, I think, is invaluable. It's just a place that you can keep your stories, organize it, and quickly find specific pieces of content. So really help your sales team out.
Outstanding. So you guys make sure you check it out. They'll be in the show notes, but it's Video Case Story. It's an easy one to remember, videocasestory.com/STR. And if you forget, then just go to the show notes because it'll be there, as well as, some ways to get a hold of Ian and his team, and just do it. Just check it out. Again, it costs you nothing to do it, and it could cost you a lot if you don't. So exactly. Make sure that you are dialing this stuff in. And right now I can say that with certainty, we're really trying to lead people effectively through these recession or through this inflationary time, whatever exciting times is what we're calling it. Cause I'm tired of hearing the buzzwords that are out there, but
I agree.
If you want to increase market share, this is the time to do it. 100%. If you want to increase profitability, this is the time to do it. If you want to make leaps and bounds and gains on the competition, this is the time to do it. But only if you have a good plan and a good strategy to execute. And so you need to be sharpening all your edges. And this is an invaluable way to get that done. So make sure you're taking advantage of this opportunity. Go check out what Ian's got for you, and make sure you tell him that we sent you, and then come back and show us the results. We want to see them.
Yes.
So what's any parting thoughts? What's your last words to leave people with?
I want to reiterate what you said there, because I started this company in the middle of the crash, right, of 2008, and everyone's like, you're crazy. I'm like, this is the best time. All the biggest companies, the best companies have taken advantage of these times, because this is your opportunity. You just have to follow. I mean, I'm so thankful to be here, but follow people like Jim who know what they're talking about, and listen to them and be around people. Because if you sit there and listen to people who are doing the recession word or whatever, you're going to get down and you're not going to see the opportunities. You're going to have your head down. So like you said, just be ready right now.
Amen to that. And I'll give you my biggest tip on that. Best piece of advice I ever got as it pertains to stories, because I speak a ton, and I always think of this too. Always be under the influence of your own stories. Don't memorize your stories. Tell your stories, and based on how you feel. Because when I talk about my childhood and being abused and growing up, sometimes I tell that from a place of gratitude, like it was a big gift and changed my life. Sometimes I tell it with sadness, because I just can't believe that my 5-year-old little self had to go through. And then sometimes I tell it because I'm angry. I'm like, how could you do that to your kid? But it's real because I'm under the influence of the moment. Still the same story, just told a little differently each time.
Love that.
So take that with you guys and go. I hope this has been useful. I'm very excited about the interview and really glad for the conversation. And I look forward to continuing this, because there's a lot more to pull out of this. Appreciate your time, Ian.
Thanks, Jim.
You guys, thank you as always for allowing us and trusting us to be part of your success team. Go make money, go change lives, and go seize the mountaintop, because you deserve it and people need you.